There and welcome. Thank you for coming. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy this. My name is Tammy and I'm with Country Girls Tumblers. Please give me a thumbs up, like, share, and consider subscribing for future videos. Hey everyone, this is the cup that we're going to be working today. It took quite a few different stages on this, but I think it turned out really great. And the lady that I did this for just absolutely loved it and the way that it turned out using the different elements that I used, 3D and the special paint. So the first thing that we need to do is take and sand our tumbler, and this is a 30-ounce skinny straight from the Stainless Steel Depot. So get that you're just going to sand it really good, and then we're going to go in with 91% rubbing alcohol. And what this is going to do is it's going to take off any and all of that dust and debris that we left on our cup from sanding it. And once we get that cleaned and let it dry, we're going to go in with our vinyl. And this vinyl I got from Crafty Thriving. It was a sample set, and I absolutely love this. So I'm going to have to get the full set. And so what we need to do is we just need to check to see where this is going to line up and make sure that when we put it on, our vinyl lines up and is level all the way around. Once we've done that, we're going to take and separate that vinyl from this backing. And I don't know why, I just recently discovered this, but if you take a piece of blue painter's tape, you can see like a little tab there on my vinyl, and I use that to help separate my vinyl from my backing, and it has worked great every time I've done this. So let's take and cut about an inch of that vinyl backing off to expose that sticky, and then we're going to double check our alignment, and we are going to start this this vinyl application, and we are just going to separate the backing from the vinyl, and we're going to use our fingertips to put this vinyl on. So you just want to gradually rub that on, and every so often, like right here, I like to take that backing off and make sure that it still lines up throughout the application of this vinyl. That way we make sure that it still is lined up once we get to the end. And once we work this all the way around and we get to the end, what we're going to do is we're going to start by cutting the vinyl. Now here you can see I'm about halfway through, and it's still lining up really well. It looks even all the way around. And on this particular one, we are letting this vinyl overhang the end because we're going to wrap the bottom of the cup with the vinyl. You can see me getting that last little bit worked on. We still line up. This cup has, this is good. I tested some of my skills on this. So usually I haven't done a cup quite like this, doing the split, the vinyl and the glitter split like this, nor have I done very much striping. And I haven't added any 3D elements to a cup before, and not for it to turn out and look really well. So this was a little bit of trial and error for me, but I think it turned out great. Here we are, we're at the end, and I'm using my thumbnail to start and make a crease for me to cut down this vinyl. And I just make real short cuts because I've had an issue making one solid cut and it not turn out very well. And once we've got that cut off, we're just going to go around this overhanging vinyl, and we're just going to cut a whole bunch of little strips, and we're going to fold that over the end of the cup like you see me doing here. The next step is since we're going to do glitter on the top half, we need to cover our vinyl on the bottom half so that we don't get any of that glitter on our vinyl. And we're just going to take some parchment paper and tape it onto the bottom. Now this is Stick and Restick by Aleene's. It is also known as Tack It and Retack It, but it's the same thing. I want to get a real good thick coat on here, and we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to go in with our glitter. Now you may not be able to find this glitter. This is Pink Emporium. It's absolutely beautiful. It matched up with this vinyl so good, and I was real happy with that. So we're just going to take and dump this glitter over the glued area that we have. And you want to get a real good coat of this glitter on. This I only had to do one coat, and once I had all that glitter on, I wound up using the cup like a rolling pin and rolling it into that glitter that is on my parchment paper on the table there, and that helped. It kind of helped burnish some of this glitter in, and it just made it stick a lot better. So you can see this is what I'm talking about. I'm kind of using it as a rolling pin, rolling that glitter into that cup and that glue. And once we do that, we need to seal our glitter. And you can see here, I'm starting to unwrap everything. I haven't sealed it at this point, and then I remember, hey, if you don't seal this with something, you can use like a school glue or clear spray paint. I prefer clear spray paint. So this is a semi-gloss clear spray paint, and you just want to get a real good coat of that on. That's going to help hold this glitter into place so that it doesn't float down onto your glitter as we start the epoxy process. So once that's cured, you want to be real careful in taking up your tape as to not pull up that glitter, because it's still possible to pull some of that glitter up at the edge of your tape. So be real careful with that process so that you don't have to reapply your glitter. Here we are, I'm just gently pulling this off slow and steady wins the race, and I haven't had to redo. Just be real careful with your tape. Like I said, it will, if you have a good stick on your tape, it can start to pull your vinyl up around that seam that we created, or it could pull your glitter up. Now, here we're using our amazing quick coat that I got from Walmart. It's a 1-to-1 mix ratio with a 20 to 25 minute work time, and it is tack free in about 4 to 5 hours. I'm using 80 milliliters, but I'm doing these 3 cups, and I generally do 1 milliliter per ounce of cup. So for 30-ounce cup, I use 30 milliliters. Now that we've got the epoxy mixed up, like I said, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, and you want to stir your epoxy for 3 to 5 minutes. That'll help ensure that it's good and well mixed. And we start our application process. So we just want to get a real good coat on our epoxy here, our epoxy on our cup. And like I said, I generally use about 30 milliliters of epoxy to a 30 milliliter cup, a 20 milliliter to 20-ounce cup. And I'm actually working on all 3 of these at the same time. And I will have a video out for the one on the far left here in the near future. So we just want to make sure we have a real good even coat of epoxy on this cup. Make sure you get the butt of your cup. Make sure you get a good amount of epoxy on that as well. And I pull from the bottom to the top, and that eliminates a lot of that epoxy drop off into the cup. When you start from the top and pull to the bottom, all that excess epoxy that is on your glove is going to drip into your cup. So that's why I like to say pull from the bottom to the top. It'll help with a lot of cleanup later on down the process. So here we're just making sure everything looks good and it looks even. And you'll see me check my cup occasionally to make sure I used the right amount that I like to use. Now with this leftover epoxy, I am using some epoxy dye from KS Resin, and this particular one is Vampire Blood. And we're going to mix it up, and I have a couple of epoxy molds, and just so happened to have one that had roses on it. So we're mixing up this Vampire Blood epoxy to make our 3D elements for our cup. So we're just going to pour this and let this sit. We're going to add a little bit of the white alcohol ink. That way it'll give, hopefully give a little bit of dimension to these roses that we're doing. So the best thing to do is once you pour your epoxy into your molds, I like to over pour it and then use my stir stick to level it out. Because this is going to be a 3D element, we want the back of the roses to be just as smooth as possible. for the application onto our cups. And once we get that little bit of white dye, that white alcohol ink, we're going to let that sit just for a minute. And we are going to torch it. And what that'll do is, just like with the cups, that'll help bring any of the micro bubbles to the surface and pop the micro bubbles so that we have a good solid foundation of our roses. And this little bit of white alcohol ink will help give a little dimension, I'm hoping, as you look into the rose. So I'm just taking a little bit of this leftover dye and working it in with the alcohol ink. We're just doing real short bursts with the torch to get those air pockets to release. I'm going to go in with another drop of alcohol ink, hopefully, so this will layer a little bit into this epoxy, because that resin dye is just so dense. Now, once we have done that, we're going to go on to the next step with our cup, and that is applying our stencil so that we can do our paint job on the top of the cup. So all I did is I went in with my name into Cricut Design Space and chose the font that I liked, and I do not remember which font this is. And I was in the process of taking my negative off, and I realized that I was working this in the wrong process. So I was taking the negative off and leaving the letters, and I was going to attach the letters onto the cup, which is what we generally do on a normal basis, but not with this. So that's what I was doing there at the beginning. I was removing those centers of the letters. And now that we've got our negative ready, we are going to place it onto our cup right here. And I'm wanting to put it on the opposite side of the seam of the vinyl. So we're just making sure that we've got the right area. And we're going to start applying that. This is the Cricut. What is this? The transfer. It's not the transfer tape. It's the stencil tape. So that's what it is. Is the Cricut stencil that we cut this out of, and we're just applying it onto our cup. And once we get that on real good and secure, and all of our centers to our letters is in, we are going to go in and we are going to start the process of covering this whole cup up. So like earlier with the process of covering up just the bottom half to epoxy or to put the glitter on the top half, we're going to take this whole cup and cover it up with our parchment paper. And you want to make sure you get a real good seal of your parchment paper and your tape around your cup. So here we are, we're getting the whole thing taped off because we're actually going to spray paint where we put our stencil. And we are going to use just it's just a real cheap black spray paint from Walmart. And we're going to spray paint this area that is clear. Now, this is the special stuff. This is Solar Color liquid crystal, and it is 12 colors. So this stuff, whenever you put it on your black or very dark background with the temperature, this paint will change color, which is really special. And all I am using is just a makeup brush, and I am dabbing this and painting this liquid crystal on. Now with liquid crystal, you have to be extra careful if you decide to get some of this. They have several different styles. They have this concentrated that you paint on, and they have a concentrated that you spray on. If you get the kind that you paint on like this right here, you have to be extra careful with it. And because as it dries, it leaves like a water-based latex style paint. So if you go over it and you're too heavy-handed, then you're going to pull up that layer of paint that was up underneath. At least that's what I found. So we're just going to go on, and the more coats of this you put, the more vibrant those colors will be. And I actually used 3 coats of this to do this name. Now with the second and the third coat, I did do a normal paint, but I also did dabbing. And with that dabbing, you'll see later on in the pictures that as I dabbed, there was areas that was a little lighter and a little darker. Now right here you can get an idea of what that liquid crystal looks like being on this back background. And I actually have really dark fingernail polish on, but it's not black. It is more like a really dark burgundy, and it looked just as good because I did apply this to a couple of my nails, and it turned out really good being on a really dark burgundy polish. You could see it on, you could see my nail tips is a neutral color here, and you could see this color change on this neutral color, but it was not near as vibrant as being on a dark surface. Now with this paint, there's a lot of things that we do. We put our paint down, and I like to seal my paint, that way nothing happens to it. Or your glitter, you want to seal that. With this paint, do not, I repeat, do not use a clear coat of spray paint over this liquid crystal. I messed up and had a bottle of this and used it on an entire cup, and I felt that I needed to clear coat it. And whenever I clear coated this paint, it lost its color changing ability. And I wound up being super bummed about that cup. So yeah, if you decide to get liquid crystal and you use it on a cup, do not seal it what you'll do is you'll just go straight into your epoxy to seal that in. And here we're taking the center of the letters out, and this is what it's looking like. Now this is being cold. You see that it's that black spray paint that we spray painted on, and as it warms up with our hand, you can see that it's changing color, and that's what we were going for. I'm going to try to do another cup later on with this crystal, liquid crystal, do a different style so you can see that as well. But this is what it's looking like, and I'm thinking it's turning out great. So now with the rim of our cup, we want to go in with our sanding paper, and we want to make sure that we get that glitter and that glue and everything off of the top of our cup. And you want to make sure that just around the very top of that cup has got a silver line, so that when we apply our next steps of epoxy, it has something to adhere to. Now we have not sealed this liquid crystal, so I'm not going in with the alcohol to risk taking that off. But we are going to go in with our nail striping tape, and this is just a washi tape right here. And you see I kind of mess up right here. So I'm starting the seam of this washi tape on the front of the cup, and I get it all on, and I realize that this is the front, and I do not want this seam on the front of this cup. So I go back in and I remove it, and we start off on the back of the cup. Now right about here is whenever I realize that I've started it on the front, and I want to go ahead and remove it and put it on the back. This is just a real light pink washi tape. I'm not sure what the size is or anything. I got this, I think it was actually in my scrapbooking stuff, that whenever I used to do a lot of scrapbooking. So here we go. This is the back of the cup, and we're going to even that off so that it'll be a good starting point, starting and ending point when we come back to the other side. So we're just going to apply this at that intersection between the vinyl and the glitter. We're just going to put it around that edge, and then I take it's a gold color nail tape, and we are going to do 3 stripes of this nail tape. We're going to do one above, one below, and one in the center of this washi tape. And it's just going to be the same process. I noticed that the further away you hold your washi tape from where you are laying down at the time, like you see where my thumb is at, the further away from that thumb that I have that tape, it's easier for me to lay down the tape and get it somewhat even. So now that we've come around to the back side and met in the middle, we're just going to reapply this. And here's our 3 stripes. Now to prevent this from coming up during the epoxy process, I'm using Crystal Lac 2.0 High Gloss Fast Dry Tumbler Coat. And this is kind of like a water-based epoxy, so you can use your hand with it to apply it. And we're just going to apply a real thin coat of that around this washi tape and the nail stripe. And in about an hour, this is good and set, so we can go on to our next process. Now this is what it looks like with that 2.0. You can't tell where it is. Sorry, I'm starting to battle a sinus infection. The weather here has been crazy. So with our rose molds that we was pouring earlier, now that they're good and cured, it's been about 4 hours. We're going to demold them and make sure they all look good. And we're going to go in with our stick it and restick it. And we're going to put a coat of glue over the top of this. Because the vinyl that we're using has just little bits of gold in it, I want to add gold to the top of the petals on these roses. And this is a great glue to use for that stick it and for that foil paper that we're going to be using here in a little bit. So while that is drying, that takes about 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to go ahead and start our epoxy on our cup, and that'll help seal in all this paint and the striping that we've done on our cup to this point. So here again, I'm just using the Amazing Quick Coat 1-to-1 ratio. It's tack free in about 4 to 5 hours at 75 degrees. And it's actually rather cold outside during the time that I'm doing this cup, and it was on the rainy side, so it's about 40 degrees outside, and my room is at 80 degrees where I'm doing these cups. Once we get that epoxy put on, we are going to torch our cup, pop any of those micro bubbles that has came up. And I generally torch my cup for about 2 full rotations, and I will stop that cup and spin it the opposite direction. And once that starts back up, sometimes I go back in and see use my torch and pop any micro bubbles that may have popped up during the process of this switching of the direction of my cup. Now we're going to go in and use our foil that I got from Artistic Painting Studio, and we are just going to put that foil on the top of these rose petals from the molds that we did. You can see some of this area, there's still a little bit of that glue that has not dried. That's no big problem. That'll dry and we won't have to worry about it. But you can see all we're doing is just taking and rubbing that foil onto our roses where we had that glue. And I actually did some leaves the same way. I'm sorry I didn't get the video of that. And then we are going to apply the roses to our cup. Y'all, I don't know what was going on whenever I was recording this part of the video. But yeah, I had my phone in the same orientation that I record everything else, And for some reason, instead of it recording like usual, it recorded in landscape. So I apologize for the layout of this portion of this video. But literally all this is applying epoxy. Still that amazing quick coat. And we're just going to apply everything as usual. But around these 3D elements of the roses and the leaves, we're going to pay close attention to around those elements, because we want to make sure that we get that epoxy on there really well, because it does not slip. It does not fit absolutely perfect on here. I waited too long between the drying process of the roses, so they cured harder than what I really wanted them to cure. And so if you don't let them cure all the way, you can put them on your tumbler and kind of form them to the cup, where here I did not do that. So you may have a few areas that actually stick up off the cup. So we're paying close attention to around those, so that we can get this epoxy on and it will help adhere these roses and these leaves to this cup. Not only that, but because we did not seal the foil to our roses, this epoxy step right here is going to help secure that as well. Now with this step, I actually used 40 milliliters of our quick coat epoxy, because we have, the elements and everything that is going to take some of that epoxy. Now granted, yes, it's not going to be 40 milliliters, but I would rather have a little more epoxy than what I need than not enough and having to mix another batch. So yes, this is 40 milliliters, and we are making sure that we have a good thick coat around this whole thing. Now having 40 milliliters, yes, it will dry a little faster. The more volume you have, the faster it cures. So you do have that, plus my room is 80 degrees. But this is flowing good. It's flowing at a steady pace, so I had no issues. And actually the humidity in my room was a little on the higher side when I was doing this cup, so my humidity was about 60% in my room, with my heater running at 80 degrees, and I had no issues using this. I have had issues in the past using other epoxies with the humidity being a little higher than what it should be, and the room not being quite to temp. So yes, I have had issues to where I had to almost resand the whole cup and start over. But luckily with this, I had no issues at all. So you want to make sure you get the butt of your cup. And we're still, y'all, like I said, at this point, I was checking and making sure everything was coated really well. And I wanted y'all, I could have edited this part out, but I wanted you to see how careful I was and paying attention to the amount of epoxy and where I was putting the epoxy. So I apologize that this section is so long. Just make sure you get around each and every one of those elements really well. And once we like the way things is looking, we are going to start torching our cup. Now that I like the way that everything is looking, and I'm confident that all of my elements is fully covered with the epoxy, we're going to torch our cup for approximately 2 rotations. And just make sure that's fully torched. And we're going to rotate our cup so that it turns in the opposite direction. And everything seems to be fine, so I don't think... No, we're going to torch a couple of areas because it looked like there is some epoxy bubbles. Now we're going to let this sit and cure for about 4 hours. And now we're going to pay attention to the little butt of our cup. So I've put my sticker on, and we're going to use some UV resin and our pink Emporium glitter that we used on the top of our cup. And this is a little silicone tool. I think it came with something that I had gotten a while back. And we're just going to go around between the vinyl and our sticker, and we're going to put this UV resin and this glitter, and we're going to just work it in to fill in that silver area. And we are going to take our UV lamp, and I'm actually going to use this lamp 30 seconds times 4 to get a good cure on it. And then we're going to go in and use our quick coat epoxy. And we're actually going to do this 2 more times to get good coats. And now I'm going to do 2 coats of 30 milliliters of this quick coat epoxy. And of course, I'm only recording this one time, so you see how we do the epoxy. You know how we do epoxy. So I'm just showing this one last time. We kind of sanded the cup just a little bit, just to ensure everything was good and clean. And we're going to put our 30 milliliters, and you can see everything is popping again. With the 30 milliliters, it's not really easier, it's all the same. But we are going to apply this, and 30 milliliters helps ensure a little more stability of not a lot of overpour, and there be ripples in our epoxy. So that'll help, using only 30 milliliters. You can use 20 milliliters. That'll just be a lot thinner coat by the time you work it over a 30-ounce cup, and you may have to do more layers of the epoxy if you're going smaller amounts. So once we've worked that epoxy on, we're just going to torch, let this spin, and we're going to change the direction of it again and torch it so that it cures nice and level and no epoxy bubbles or air bubbles in our epoxy. Once we've done that, this is the results. It's nice and pretty and shiny. Y'all, I hope this has inspired you to try something new. Like I said, this did put me out of my comfort zone a little. But I think it turned out beautiful. If you like this, please consider liking and subscribing. Here you can see the white in the roses, the gold on the leaves. Y'all, this just turned out great. Like I said, if you like this, please consider liking and subscribing. And I hope you have a great day. Until next time, continue crafting. Have a great day.